What's up, everybody, and welcome to the newest edition of the Bronx Muchachos podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and tonight we got a very special guest. We got my main man, Jeremy. Jeremy, what's going on, brother?
What's up, Mark? Happy to be here.
We're glad to have you guys with us. For all you guys watching, always check us out on the Baseball Banner Broadcast Network. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button, smash the like button. You watch, listen to us all on all audio platforms, Spotify, um, Apple, iTunes. You know the places we're on. We're everywhere, man. So let's get right into it tonight. Jeremy, thank you very much for joining us as par for the course. But
Absolutely.
we are getting towards we are pretty much at the end of spring training. We got a week, less than a week as we're recording this right now. Next week, Wednesday, we're going to be having pitches and we're going to have first pitch. Unfortunately, it'll be on Netflix, which is still weird to see that you have all these different avenues to watch baseball on. But let's dive into a few things here. Um, so I don't know if we're going to be able to get you on next week or not, buddy. So I want to know right off the rip your 26-man roster. Who you think is making the? Who you think is making it?
Yeah. So when you approached me about the idea of the 26-man roster, I was very thoughtful about this opportunity, right? And looking at what this team could be and what this team could look like for the 2026 season, at least to the start the year, right? And we know there's been a lot of controversy, a lot of talk about Jasson Domínguez starting the year in Triple-A. And I think that's probably what's going to happen, right? And for as much as I would love to have had JDOM, playing in the Bronx to start the year, I very much believe that the Yankees just aren't going to do it. With bringing back Grisham, with bringing back Bellinger, I just don't really see the avenue for him, and I think that he needs to be playing every day. So we'll run through my team. Obviously, our starters are pretty set, right? So we got Austin Wells at catcher, Ben Rice at first base, Jazz Chisholm Jr. at second, Ryan McMahon at third, Jose Caballero starting at short, Cody in left, Grisham in center, obviously the captain in right, and Big G starting at the DH. Then for the bench is really where it's kind of already set. There's really one spot that's available, I would say. So we got JC Escaro, who's going to be the backup catcher. We heard Boone talk about that the other day on the spring training broadcast, that they're likely going to be running technically with three catchers because Ben Rice does catch, but he hasn't been catching much, right?
Mhm.
Ahmed Rosario been brought back to be that guy, to go up against left-handed pitching, and likewise, Paul Goldschmidt has been brought in to be that platoon against the lefties. And really, the only question was the last bench spot, right? And I think with the Yankees bringing in Randall Grishik, I think that he's going to be the guy that gets that fourth outfield spot, similar to when they acquired Austin Slater last year, to kind of be that righty bat that hits against lefties, right? You know, Cody has been great against left-handed pitching over the last couple of years, so he's likely going to shift over to center against those tough lefties. Gritchick will be in left, and Trent will be the guy that sits. When it comes to the pitching staff, that to me is where there's kind of even less question marks, if I would say. Max Fried is getting that opening day nod. Cam Schlittler starting out at the number two, but once we get those other guys back, he'll probably bump down to four, maybe five in the rotation. And by doing so, also being able to kind of watch and navigate his innings. Then we got Luis Heel, Will Warren, and I think Ryan Weathers ends up being the number five starter, at least to start the year. Obviously, Bednar, and we saw what he did in the WBC, was an absolute beast. He's coming in going to be the closer every day, right? So leading into setting him up, you're looking at, Camilo Doval, Fernando Cruz, Tim Hill. That's kind of the back end of the pen. You got, guys like Ryan Yarbrough to kind of be that long man. And, the Yankees acquired Jake Bird last year from the Rockies. It didn't have a very good start for us, but we know that the Yankees really liked his stuff. And, having a full, off season with Matt Blake, yeah, I think that's going to be a guy that they're going to rely on heavily. And then really the last two bullpen spots, one of them's going to Paul Blackburn. You're not signing him to a major league deal to then not have him on the roster. And then, you took the Rule 5 pick in Cade Winquist, right? So you have to have him on the roster. Otherwise, you got to offer him back to St. Louis. So I think that's how the team is going to end up with the 26-man roster. I don't think that there's really a lot of questions other than that last bench spot. And whether it goes to a guy, veteran guy who's played in that platoon role, who's played that, fourth outfield role in Grichuk, or you go with the young guy in JDOM who's going to be sitting on the bench for more often than not. So to me, that's kind of how the only real question about the way this team was going to shake out for the 2026 start.
And I'll say it's kind of funny because I'm looking at Randall Grichuk's numbers this spring. I mean, he's only played in 6 games, had 16 at bats. He's had 2 hits, 6 strikeouts. He's batting 125 with a 125 OBP, with a 188 slug, and a 313 OPS. Now, I know that spring training numbers can be deceiving at times. I mean,
Volpe got his job.
It really is. I mean, Anthony Volpe got his job because of a hot spring, and he's never matched those numbers ever again. Spencer Jones has been having a killer spring. Carlos Lagange has been having a killer spring. Dominguez has been having a killer spring. Elmer Rodriguez has been having a killer spring. Ben Hess has been having a killer spring. So, I mean, some of the youngsters that have come up and kind of having these killer springs that they need is a good thing, because that's exactly where it comes down to. But on the flip side of the coin, you do have guys that are struggling. Like McMahon is struggling yet again.
Yeah.
Even though he's working on a new stance, so that could be taken into consideration. Randall Grichuk, like I said, he's struggling. The big one is Trent Grisham. He is truly struggling this spring, and I know everybody here knows that the Yankees are going to turn around and they're paying someone $22.9 million. He's going to get every opportunity to play until it falls apart. So,
i.e. Josh Donaldson, DJ LeMahieu, and Aaron Hicks.
And the list, and honestly, the list goes on and on and on. So, yeah, you're right. I agree with you. Like, all those spots are there. The one caveat I did hear was that there is talks of possibly sending Luis Gil down to the minor leagues, because they're working on a release point right now. So that could be a little giddy up. But they also, they sent Lagange back down to AAA. So are you going to send him down to bring him back up? I mean, if you bring him up, their idea is to bring Lagange down to AAA to make sure he's stretched out as a starter. So if he's going to be a starter, if Cruz is going to be a starter, and they're going to and they wind up sending, Gil down there as a starter, then I mean, Hal Steinbrenner is going to have the best ever AAA squad that there is, but that's really not going to affect the bottom line that he needs to have. So but it's also early in the season. You don't really need your 5 starters early in the season. So I mean, 100%. I think that you're right now going Fried to Schlitt to Warren. Actually, I think is your number 3 guy coming, because he's had a heck of a spring as well. And then having having Weathers as your number 4, that can kind of get you through a few of the first couple of weeks, and then you bring Gil back up, or you kind of work with Gil and kind of keep him down in Tampa. You kind of just let him do a few extra things, and then kind of let him ride from there. But this is Gil's kind of. I think I don't see him having any much more shots after this. Like, this is going to be his last shot, especially for the starting rotation.
Yeah, because you figure the Yankees are biding time until they get Carlos Rodon back in the rotation. We saw Garrett Cole pitch an inning in spring training yesterday at the time of this recording. So, those guys it's just, kind of marking things off the calendar, marking days off, and checking off the boxes as far as the rehab process. So, and like you said, a lot of that first month of the season, there are a lot of off days mixed in. So you don't really need to have 5 starters. The Yankees brought in Ryan Yarbrough to be kind of that long swingman anyway. So realistically, if you send Gil down to work on some stuff, then you can have, Yarbrough play that 5th starter role if you need him to be that. And then a guy that they brought in from, the Rockies in Angel Shivivi, that's going to be a guy that could absolutely be looked at. And, he's not having a great spring either, but that's a guy that they really like his stuff. So that could be a guy that fits into the bullpen, especially early in the year, if you start Gil down in the minors.
Very true. Very true. And then I would have thought that they instead of putting Heel in the minors, you can flip it and put Heel in the bullpen, start him off there, like let him work with Matt Blake, let him work on that release point, put a Yarbrough up there in the as kind of like your opener or as your 4 inning kind of guy or something like that, and then you can kind of piggyback Heel and Yarbrough together in a sense. You know what I mean? Like you have them both stretched out. You can have them both going 4 innings, 5 maximum, and then go from there. So that's
you can
that could be another option.
Yeah, you can definitely have them piggyback starting. You figure if you start out with Yarbrough, then you bring Heel in to kind of maximize the rest of that game.
It's something. It's just something. It's something to think about. McMahon. They're having talks about McMahon moving over to shortstop, which really, man, that pisses me off so much. Yeah. Honestly, it pisses me off so much. Why are you going to take what could be let's not say could be is your best defender on the infield? He plays absolutely gold glove caliber, not caliber. He is a gold glove third baseman. Yeah. You're going to move him over into a position where he's not comfortable to take on more responsibility. For what reason? Because you don't want to put Jose Caballero there? Because you want to make sure that there is an absolute no blockage for Anthony Volpe's return, which shouldn't be the case, that he should have as many roadblocks in front of him as possible because he hasn't proven himself.
Yeah.
So I can't understand the Yankees thought process at all when it comes to some of these moves. It's mind-boggling, man. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it kind of goes back to, something that's been, said over and over throughout the course of the Baseball Banner broadcast and the Bronx Muchachos, is that the Yankees are constantly playing guys out of position. And this is just another sign of it, right? So why wouldn't you have a guy in Oswaldo Cabrera, let's say, who is a utility guy who can play all over the field, who can be your backup at shortstop, to be the backup at shortstop? Why are you moving your gold glove third baseman, which you acquired him to be that, right? To be a gold glove third baseman, to protect the pitchers in Max Fried and Carlos Rodon that are, ground ball specialists. You want that lockdown defender at that spot, and you're going to move him out of position, right? And then when you think about, Volpe's return, right, which is, we haven't heard much of anything about it, but he's going to come back and get the job right away. And so when you have him come back, now what does that do to Caballero? What does that do to the rest of the way that this roster is constructed? I just think that the Yankees are constantly trying to show that they're the smartest, organization by doing things that just don't make sense. And it's like it just backfires every single time and blows up in their face. And yet they still haven't been able to figure out, like, hey, maybe we're trying to do too much. Let's stick to the basics and go from there.
Well, the basics are too easy for them to do. Honest, if you really want to think about it, I mean, how often do we talk about these things? How often do we talk about, people out of position? The usage rate of everybody not being used properly. Like after a while, enough's enough when it comes to it. So
yeah,
I mean, you can see it from going for years upon years. I mean, you moving Gleyber Torres to shortstop, moving Gio Urshela to shortstop, playing Aaron Hicks in different spots in the outfield when he shouldn't have been playing out there. You know what I mean? Like, how many different people did they rotate throughout the outfield at times just so they can get somebody out there? Clint, speaking of outfielders, look at Clint Frazier. Yeah. He was not a left fielder, and they kept putting him in left field because they said, "Oh, well, he can play any spot out there." They're doing this with JDOM. That they're going to put him. They're going to keep sending him to left field. Send him to left field, and then you listen to scouts. They're going, "Well, Spencer Jones with the high strikeout rate, maybe he should be in the corner outfield." So now you're good. Now you're kind of screwing over two guys. Now you've just screwed over two of your top specs. For what? Because you can't figure it out. Because you have decided that this is how we want it to be. It's frustrating, to say the least. It's, you know what I mean? Like it becomes a frustrating option and frustrating issues all the time.
Yeah, and you know, when it comes to Dominguez and them forcing him to left, right? Because that to me is what happened. They forced him to left field. Because when he first came up, he was in center, right?
Hmm.
All his time throughout the minor leagues was in center field. Like this was going to be, you know, and I've made this comp before, and you know, obviously not to the same degree, but this could have been the next, you know, this generation's Bernie Williams, like a switch hitting outfielder, center fielder that was capable of providing you speed and power combination, and yet the Yankees absolutely burnt every single piece of what he could be offensively by tinkering with him and throwing him into left field like he could just do it. Like this isn't the hardest left field in the game right now in terms of being able to just go out there, right? It's not like we're dealing with Fenway Park where you have a
Yeah,
shorter left field with the monster, right? Where the hardest part of it is figuring out the bounces off the wall. This is arguably the hardest left field in baseball in any stadium of the 30 major league squads. And you just throw him out there basically overnight, like, hey, you're the left fielder now. And it's like, I wonder if he had not gotten hurt when he first got called up, if this was always going to be the plan or if they would have left him in center field.
you know, it's funny. I think that if you watched it, like going back to 2024, I'm sorry, to 2023. Pardon me about that one. When he first came up, number one, when the minute he got into the starting lineup, nobody spoke about Volpe anymore. Like those 8 games, like Anthony Volpe was an afterthought, and then Austin Wells was even further, honestly, further down the line, and because the both of them started the same game in Houston.
Yeah.
But you're right, Jason was the center fielder, and they put him in center field, and yes, he got his arm hurt, but he's still a above average, above average arm strength. So I don't know why they moved him off there. You know, when they came, obviously when it came to 2024, they weren't putting Judge in left field. They had Juan Soto in right field, so the only position available was left field, and they ran through the problems in left field, and then decided at the end of the day, like, oh, let's give this, let's see if we can give him the kid a shot now, and they didn't really prepare him for that, and then it was, oh well, then all of a sudden because they didn't prepare him, oh, the shine's coming off of him now, oh, he's not that good of a defender, oh, now we can't do this, now we can't do that, oh, he can't hit, he can't do all of a sudden these things he can't do as opposed to can do, and I think it was more along the lines of like I hate to put it this way because you saw what happened last year that they subbed him in for Volpe, who was atrocious, absolutely atrocious, and they wanted the kid to get. They didn't want Volpe to get any more booze. They said, "Oh, give Dominguez the shot. Oh, whatever. We don't care if he strikes out. We don't care if he gets out. As long as Volpe is taken care of, we're good." And what does he do? He rips a double right off the rip. And this is what you're waiting for. And this is what you're waiting for. Trent Grisham had a horrible postseason as well. He had a horrible back half of the season.
Yep.
Rewards him with $22 million. I don't see it. I don't see what their end game is because they believe that Trent Grisham, they unlocked something in Trent Grisham, and the only thing that they unlocked is the fact that he hit more home runs. He didn't play as much, which kept him fresher. And the minute they put him in on a regular basis, he was horrible.
Yeah.
So are they going to go back and say, well, he's an everyday player, we're going to play him every day? And if they do that, what are come June, are they going to turn around and cut bait?
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
you can see it doesn't work because they've had there's such a long list of things of Trent Grisham playing on an everyday basis that it does not work for him.
yeah. Yeah, and I think when you look at it, you know, obviously Yankee Stadium plays a big factor into his power success, right? And I was listening to MLB Network Radio earlier today, and they were talking about the fact that, yeah, he had 34 home runs or whatever it was, but he only had 9 doubles. I mean, if you're
Mm-hmm.
hitting for that much more power realistically, you'd have a lot more doubles than 9,
Mm-hmm.
like single digit doubles for a guy who played, you know, the majority of the season, three-fourths of it, you know, when they started stop platooning him. And that second half, like you said, really did not do anywhere near what he did in the first. And so for me, it's such a question as to what the Yankees were thinking offering him the qualifying offer. Obviously, they did not think he was going to accept it, right? That was probably the biggest thought process. Oh, well, you know, we'll offer it. we'll get a, you know, 4th round pick or whatever it was. And that to me just was not worth the risk of him potentially accepting it as he did.
Well, there was also, don't forget, there was also the other caveat was that Bellinger hadn't signed yet. So I guess by offering him, they kind of said, okay, well, we're gonna hedge our bets. We're going to, if Bellinger doesn't come back, then we at least have Grisham that can play another outfield position, and you kind of then hand it to Dominguez, and then you can kind of play the game of, all right, we got Spencer Jones for one more year in the minors. Now we can do this. You know, we can bring Spencer up halfway through the season, or in 2027, we'll give him another full year of maturing down in Triple-A, and then bring him up, and then you have the outfield of Jasson, Spencer, Judge. If Bellinger never came back, and I get it. You know, you listen to guys like Joel Sherman, John Heyman talking a lot, and Joel Sherman putting out there like a guy who hits 34 home runs or 32 home runs, whatever it was, like hits the open market. That's something that the Yankees would be interested in getting. Who played decent center field? They would have gotten him. 22 million, maybe too much, but that was somebody they would have made a trade for, or would have looked at. So, you know, I see where they came from with it, but they should have seen what everybody else has seen, which is he's not an everyday player. The minute he became an everyday player, he faltered. He fell apart. And that's on Cashman. That's on Randy Levine. That's on Hal. That's on Boone. That's on every one of on all the scouting. That's on the entire team that they can't put this thing together. Like they have it. And you know what? And I also do think like when Aaron Judge says, I want to run it back with my guys, and Hal's all about, I want to run it back with these guys in the front office, it trickles down to the players on the field. I mean, let's be honest about this and let's be real. Like Aaron Judge has been gets a lot of the guys that he wants, and gets to get rid of the guys he doesn't want. You know, case in point, like they didn't go. They went to a certain spot. I mean, listen, you going $750 some odd million is not really kind of just stopping when it comes to Soto, but they didn't do what Steve Cohen did, which was like take the extra step, like go the extra mile. They decided to go. They just went there enough to show. It kind of seemed like they were showing everybody that we want him, but we don't want him that much. You know, don't want this this guy that we just went to the World Series. We don't want him. We want him just enough, but not overly. We're not going to go over the moon for him, but we're going to go over the moon for guys that are a little bit older, a little bit more injury prone, coming off of their one good season.
Yeah.
And we're gonna stop the development of the young kids that we know can help us. So it's an odd thing for me. But kind of also brings into another question or another kind of thought process going forward, because we did the State of the Yankees. I said this team is a transitional team. So I'm gonna rip off these names for you. You got Dominguez. We're gonna put Spencer Jones there, Austin Wells, Ben Rice, Anthony Volpe. You got Schlittler there. You got Will Warren there. You got Luis Hill. These are all for all intents and purposes, all homegrown guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see how many of them, and which ones do you see as the core of this team going forward?
Well, that's a great question. So obviously Schlittler, right? You have to start there because this is a guy who has the stuff of an ace, and so everything starts with pitching, right?
Right.
So you have to be able to facilitate that. To me, and I've mentioned this before, I think Luis Hill would be better served to be a bullpen guy, especially when he can't find that third pitch. You stick him in the bullpen, and he's only got to worry about 1 and 2. And you come in, you give it all you got, and then you go sit down, right? So I think for me, that would be the guy that I would look to put in the pen, and if we're gonna go, core 4, obviously to me, Jasson Domínguez is a guy who absolutely needs to be the guy that they kind of build their offense around. I think that, obviously the Yankees as an organization have soured on him, but I don't think that fans have soured on him, right? Personally, I have not. I think that this is a guy who needs to be given the opportunities that we've seen Anthony Volpe get. And for me, that's one of the guys that I want to kind of build this team around for the future, right? I think that having a switch hitter of all things, something that's a dying art in our sport,
Mm-hmm.
he's not going to get better against left-handed pitching unless you throw him out there against left-handed pitching, right? So for the knock of, oh, he can't hit lefties, well, he doesn't get the opportunity because he never really had an issue when he was in the minors because he was out there playing every single day. And then, if we were going to build the new core four, Ben Rice to me is a guy that really opened my eyes last year to what he was capable of doing, and a little bit even more the year before. So if I was building a four, of the names mentioned there, that's probably going to be the fourth guy. Austin Wells is a guy that I really do like. I think that there's an opportunity there. He needs to be more consistent with the bat. But I think that, he's shown an ability that was not thought to be had, in terms of what he's able to do behind the plate, right? And we saw, part of what he did with the Team Dominican Republic in the WBC. And while he didn't have the greatest batting average, he had a couple of very big home runs for them. But he called a good game. The pitchers liked throwing to him. So to me, like if you're building a core, obviously having a catcher as a part of that core is definitely going to be a big factor. And, we've spoken about Volpe quite a bit. We know he's your favorite player, but when I look at Volpe, and we've said it before, he's really a second baseman, right? Nobody other than the Yankees see him as a shortstop. At best, if he were to move over to second, I think that there would be a better opportunity for him in terms of, not having to look so rushed and out of place when he's throwing the baseball. When he's at short, and you can see it, the more time that he has, the more likely the throw is going to be offline, right? When he doesn't have the time to think and to kind of, double, triple pump, quadruple pump to throw the ball over to first base, and then try to just absolutely wing it with the arm that he doesn't have. I think that, he'd be better suited as a second baseman. And we know that the Yankees have a shortstop coming up. It's going to be a very big deal, right? In terms of George Lombard Jr. I think when it comes to Spencer Jones, as much as I love the power profile, I'm very nervous about his strikeout rate. I think that, if he's striking out at the clip that he has been in the minor leagues, what's that going to be when the pitching gets to that next level, right? And, he's had a good spring and he's been able to cut down that strikeout rate. So for me, that's something to be paying attention to. But, this is also the Yankees, right? And when we start, believing in a guy, we start to, kind of get hyped up with what we've seen about him. Yankees do a very good job of hyping up their prospects and sometimes overdoing it, right? And so it's a matter of seeing what he can do once he hits that next level. So I think it's an interesting time to be, a Yankee fan when it comes to this potential young core that we're building here, because obviously, Grisham's done after this year. He's not going to be on the Yankees beyond this year.
He might be done in the middle of the year. He might be done by June. So
yeah, no, I
if
mean,
you want to be honest about
facts.
it, there's a chance that he could be done by June.
That's facts. That very much could be the possibility. I mean, we've seen them cut bait at certain points in time with big name guys at different points, guys that were making big money. I mentioned, Donaldson and DJ LeMahieu, A-Rod back in 2016 before the call up of Tyler Austin and Aaron Judge. So, there's not a big window there once the Yankees hit the June 15 mark where they could trade Trent Grisham. By that point, half the money's already gone. So they're more likely to eat something if he's not producing, or if he goes back to producing the way we've seen him throughout much of his career produce, right? So I think that there's, a lot to like about what could be coming for this team, but there's still a lot of questions about it, right? Beyond the Cam Schlittler, right? Will Warren is a serviceable guy at the back end of your rotation. Garrett Cole's getting older, Max Fried's getting older, Carlos Rodon's getting older. So like that rotation is going to quickly turn over right now. Obviously you mentioned guys that could be building that next, heavy, strong starting rotation with Lagrange and Elmer Rodriguez and Ben Hess. Like there's an opportunity there, right? And if you have good pitching, you can last for a very long time in this league. So I think the Yankees have a bright future with this young team that they have, kind of coming. the team that'll most likely be predominantly in Triple-A for this year. But I think that there are some opportunities there for sure to see something coming in terms of the turnover that's likely coming in the next 2-3 years.
Oh, absolutely. And even to add some other guys, I mean, you do have like a Dax Kilby that's on the way up there. You have guys like Core Jackson coming. You have bullpen arms. Thatchel Hurd is Pico Cohen. Those kind of kids are coming. Those are guys that'll move through the system fast, and that kind of helps lower the cost a bit. Especially we're talking arms. I mean,
yeah,
within like 3 years, you can see like a whole revamping of the bullpen, and not just starting pitching, but the whole pitching side of it, because they've been really good on the pitching side. So I mean, if you get the end of Cole, which is Garrett Cole's end of his years, and Rodon's end of his years, and you have a Schlittler there. You got El Grande firmly entrenched, and Elmer Rodriguez entrenched, and Ben Hess there. You got a Cunningham that's on the way as well. Unfortunately, Brock Selvage, he's down. Unfortunate having Tommy John surgery, the internal brace, I should say. Which is unfortunate for him. You got Chase Hampton on, doing the recovery tour this year from Tommy John as well. So, there's pitching coming, and then you can kind of figure out, hey, if you're not going to make it here, we got you in the bullpen, and you can have a career in the bullpen too.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because I mean, the greatest closer of all time was a failed starter, and that's how Mo got moved to the pen, and history was written from there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's funny because if you think about it, a lot of back in the day, like Dave Cohn used to say, you made your bones, you broke into the big leagues by being in the bullpen. Then you make your transition from the bullpen to the starting rotation. A lot of guys now is like, no, you're coming up. They have everyone in these avenues, so like you're kind of pigeonholed into what you got to do. And if you fail there, then you move over to something else, especially in pitching side. You can go from being the starter into the bullpen. It's very tough to go from being in the bullpen to a starter. So, it's a tough move to kind of go forward at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. And Dave chiming in with the rotation in 2028 to 2030 is going to be nasty if they keep it all in-house potentially.
It's a chance. I mean, everything, it's a lot of minor leagues. It's a tough move. I mean, everything's got to hit, and you don't really see. It's tough to have everybody hitting, at one clicking at the same time, but to have all your top guys hit. You're kind of. You wanted to say you're seeing it with Baltimore right now. That's a tough one to kind of say, because really the one you had Adley who hit, and then who's started off really well, and he's had some back issues and had some problems, but Gunnar is obviously like probably the second best shortstop in the league. You have Jackson Holiday, who's, not to say the jury's out on him, but he's definitely improved from his first go around in the bigs.
Yeah.
You still got a few other guys like Heston Kershed that's coming through there. You got Samuel Baseo that's coming up there, and where the hell is that guy going to play? Because you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't play him at first base. You can't put him at catcher. So where the hell is he going to be your DH? Because that is they gave him big money. They signed him real quick. So he's there. He's got to play. So, it's a wild thing. I mean, that's why I was saying, like, Baltimore's scared. But man, Baltimore scares me this year. That's the team that scares me. But having taking this all the way back to the Yankees wise to the '90s, and we always revert back to them. But it's very rare that you hit on a catcher, you hit on a first base, hit on a shortstop catcher. You had your center fielder that was already there. You had a perennial starting pitcher and a closer at that point too. And don't forget, you had a kid Ramiro Mendoza, who was that kind of swing option that could go 5 innings when you needed him to. But when you put him in the rotation, he kind of wasn't built for the rotation, but he was built enough that, all right, we need to give some of these guys a day off. He can kind of run it for a few innings.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where, to me, a guy like Ryan Weathers is so interesting, right? Because he, to me, could be that guy that is that kind of swing man, right? That could come in, take 3, 4, 5 innings if need be, and then also be a guy that comes out of the pen, right? When we get, Cole back, when we get Rodon back, like that to me is a guy that plays a very, very interesting role. So I think that he could be a very interesting addition to this 2026 roster.
Oh, 100%. Because even if he doesn't make it in the starting rotation, he could be your setup man, or he could
Yeah,
be your closer too. Like because don't forget Bednar is on a 1 year deal.
yeah,
So I mean, he could take over the closing role, and he's got nasty stuff that can run it like that. So
yep,
there's like I said, there's a lot. The pitching side, there's a lot to be happy about, and there's a lot to drool over. I'm just hoping that they figure out the hitting side to it all. You know
yeah. That
that
to me is the biggest question.
and honestly, like this, I think starting this, they've had some. They've been producing from. They've produced out of the draft. I think this year is a big move for the draft for the Yankees. Like, yeah, they're drafting in the mid 30s for the first round pick, but they didn't. They have the full complement of draft picks this year, so it's not like they're missing. Their number one, their number four, whatever like that. They got their full complement, and they have to really invest in on the hitting side of it this go around. And the first pick that they're taking, they have to hit on it. I got a couple of guys in mind that could fall to them at their spot, but they got to hit. That's exactly what happens. Like that first pick they get, they have to hit on him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, the offense is going to be, obviously last year was, one of the best, if not the best in baseball in different categories, right? But when you look at this team, a lot of that it was carried by a big offensive year from Judge, a big offensive year from Ben Rice.
Hmm.
You had a big offensive year from Jazz. Jazz is another guy that's, basically on a 1 year deal. Like he'll be a free agent after the year. The fact that the Yankees have not, we know typically they go to free agency with guys, right? They don't typically deal with long-term extensions before a guy hits free agency. But
Hmm.
the fact that they have not even remotely had a conversation when Jazz is clearly, sent the signals and the signs like that he wants to be a Yankee, I find very interesting. I think that that kind of leaves the door open for potentially moving Volpe, who they absolutely love and have started to kind of make different statements that kind of make it seem as if he won't be given the same kind of leash that he's been given thus far through the first 3 years. But obviously, we'd have to wait and see till that happens. But
Yeah,
moving
sure.
him
I'm
to
sure pigs will fly before they cut bait on that.
yeah, no, for sure. And moving a guy like Volpe to second then clears the way, as Dave is mentioning here with George Lombard Jr. Coming in at short, right? The GLJ is definitely already ready to play the position defensively every single
Hmm.
day in the major leagues. The Yankees are waiting for that bat to kind of catch up. So I think that there's an opportunity there for them to be able to do something long term with the way this team is set. I still think that they need a better option at third base. Yes, McMahon defensively
Hmm.
is without a doubt the guy, right? But waiting for him to hit a home run potentially is just not going to really do it for me. Like this is a guy who really couldn't hit in Colorado, which is a hitter's haven. Like if you can't hit there, even with the short porch in right field, I don't have high expectations for what you're going to do offensively. So I think the Yankees need to kind of, reaffirm and kind of shore things up, especially with Bellinger having the opt outs. Like you got to figure out what you're going to do with that corner outfield spot. Are you playing Spencer Jones in center? Are you playing him in left? Are you, having Dominguez run out there? Are you not having Dominguez on your team at all? Like, what is this team actually going to be built like is kind of the biggest thing for me looking at this squad right now is you really don't know what the direction is.
No, you don't know where the direction is. I mean, the only direction that you do know is the following: is that you have Aaron Judge, you got Cody Bellinger, um, pretty much locked up for long term for all intents and purposes. You have Ben Rice locked up long term, and it's kind of it. I mean, everybody else is a question mark. I mean, center field's a question mark, third base is a question mark, shortstop's a question mark, second base is a question mark, catching is a question mark. Like you got two corner spots and a first base is locked up. Like that's not something that you kind of want to have. Those are great. They're people that are really good, but those aren't the ones that you want locked up long term or to figure out like that's not the most. Those aren't the athletic positions that you need. You need shortstop. You need second base. You need a center fielder. You need to figure all these things out. Maybe you figure out. Maybe and there's trade. You can always do trades, but it's tough to think about. I mean, and the Yankees are very very much will probably they do I call it dumb things, but they'll take a veteran on a 1-year deal over giving a youngster the run that the youngster needs. And a lot of these times, these veterans on the 1-year deal don't produce, and you're spending $1 million, $2 million, up to $5 million on a guy that is way past the prime and is now sitting on the bench. And that bench spot, that spot on the field could be deserved for X, Y, or Z or something like that. And
yeah, I mean, it kind of goes to the point Dave's making here, with the Yankees signing Chris Carter because he hit 45 home runs in Colorado the year before and did absolutely nothing for the Yankees. You know what I mean? It's funny to me because it's like, you hear all these different organizations talking about building championships from the middle of the diamond up, right? Having a catcher that you can build around, a shortstop you can build around, a center fielder you can build around. And the Yankees are building from the corners in, right?
Yeah.
And it just doesn't really fit the mold of what you expect. Yes, you want to be able to have quality players at every spot, right? Obviously, you're not going to have a team like you have in the WBC where there's a superstar, an all-star at every position. But you want to be able to make sure that you have the guys that you're building your championship caliber team around be strong up the middle, right? That's where teams are. When they're strong up the middle, that's who's capable of producing and being able to be a winning ball club, right? So I just think that the Yankees really are kind of a team that is, over the last several years at least, always been searching for an identity. And it's like they don't really know what they're looking for. Like they don't know what they're building. I mean, half a decade ago, this team was too right-handed heavy. Now it's too left-handed heavy. Like, it just seems to be that the Yankees cannot figure out the balance in their lineup. I think the last time that the Yankees really had a balanced lineup was the year they won in 2009. I mean, you had lefties, you had righties, you had switch hitters, and there was just a balance and a flow, and there was a consistency to that lineup that the Yankees have not had throughout the last decade plus.
No, you're 100% right about that. I mean, and like you said before, a lot of the switch hitter is kind of a dying breed. For a little while, I want to say that, especially in Latin America, they were kind of want to say those are the guys that kind of were reviving the switch hitting position or the switch hitting role, I should say. But yeah, I mean, in how baseball is currently and how it is today, it's to take the time to not just learn one swing and perfect one swing, but then have to perfect a second swing is just too much. It's too, with careers that get short very fast. These guys no one wants to put the time and effort into to do that, to say, okay, well, I'm going to do this. We're going to push them to hit from both sides of the plate because this is the best way to move forward. But to get to the big leagues, you have to be proficient. You have to hit for power, and if you can't hit for power on one side of the plate, then why are we going to keep working on that? Or, like we're talking about Jasson. How often is it that we're talking about? Well, we can't hit left-handed, so we just ditch left-handed, just ditch hitting right-handed. Down in the minors, Roger Arias, same thing. Hits well against the righties, and he's a switch hitter. Oh well, he can't hit again. He can't hit lefty, so ditch the lefty, ditch the right-handed bat. Stick to being lefty. They're young. Like, give them, these kids can have this opportunity. You want to say that against the Frankie Lindor that was doing that? No. Bernie Williams? No. Nick Swisher came up because he was with us being a switch hitter. Melky Cabrera made a career being a switch hitter.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Jorge Posada was a switch hitter.
Chili
Davis. Yeah. So many. There was tons and tons of guys. Like, it's worthwhile to have a switch hitter because then all of a sudden, especially when now that the rules have changed, that they have to pitch to people. You have to
Yep.
pitch to three batters. Having a few switch hitters in that lineup kind of screws up any plans that you have. Like, all right, well, we got we have lefties over here, so we can throw the left-handed batters. We can throw our left-handed pitchers in there, but you know what? In the midst of this whole thing, we're going to have a righty bat along the way just because he's a switch hitter. It begins to throw monkeys in the wrench for too many teams that you can't. It's hard to plan with the switch hitters, and you know,
Yeah.
going back to 2009, like that was one of the biggest things. Like you go Jeter to Damon, and then you go switch hitting with Mark Teixeira to A-Rod batting righty, then you go straight over to Hideki lefty. Then I think at that point Posada switch hitting or something like that, right?
Yeah. Posada, then Cano, then Swisher,
Cano, then you
Cabrera.
switch it. Yeah, I mean, when you have four switch hitters, four of them, it caused so many problems because you can't plan for it. It's even back then when you turn around and can pick one, start pick mixing and matching. Like you can't do that when you have four switch hitters because then you're just flipping them and it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, no doubt. And like we said, it's a dying art when it comes to switch hitting. I mean, you can basically count on one hand the number of switch hitters that are in the major leagues right now. And one of them's about to be a little less because Dominguez is likely going to start in Triple-A.
Yeah, and they're going to wait till the last minute to send him down to Triple-A.
Yep.
Which is the craziest thing. They will probably wait till Tuesday to send him back down.
Yeah. Yep. It's absolutely crazy.
Oh. All right. Well, speaking, you mentioned the WBC before, and I just kind of want to touch on one thing with the WBC. I mean, it went from a stinker, like the final went from like kind of like a stinker to like a really good game to back to unfortunate thing for Team USA. But I mean, Team USA against Dominican Republic was a great game.
Incredible.
I mean, that was pitching was phenomenal. Aaron Judge, you got to give Aaron Judge a ton of credit because that one throw single-handedly changed the entire trajectory for the Dominican team because they stopped running because he threw Fernando Tatis Jr. out. They weren't pushing the envelope, and they were scared to push the envelope at that point. So I guess my question is this. Because of the WBC, in a good way, how do you think the players, the Yankees coming back particularly, are going to now treat the rest of spring training and then treat the season? Are they gonna is Judge gonna come back with a little chip on the shoulder for someone who had a decent but not great WBC, especially offensively? Is Bednar gonna come back after pitching really high intensity games? Is he gonna take the foot off the gas and have to rev the engine back up? Is Duvall gonna be there rocking and rolling? How's Elmer Rodriguez gonna be down in AAA, knowing that he pitched really well for Team Puerto Rico, and then now has to be in AAA to kind of have to prove himself again? How's Austin Wells? Augusto Wells, not Austin Wells, Augusto Wells. Is he coming back as Austin, or is he coming as Augusto? I don't know yet. If he came back with the Braves, then you know what's happening.
Yeah, no, I think that I think it's an intriguing thing, right? And I think that the first few weeks of the season are really going to shed a big light on it. I think that the experience that some of these guys got playing in the WBC is going to carry over well for this year. I think that when you look at, like you mentioned with Judge, right, he's going to have a bitter and a sour taste in his mouth for how the WBC ended, right? And if he carries that chip into the 2026 season, look out. I mean, this guy is already, arguably the best player in baseball, right? This is a guy who 3 of the last 4 seasons has had a 50-plus home run campaign. If he comes in playing with a chip on his shoulder and capable of playing how he did, and take it to another level than how he did in the WBC, obviously the final game was not a good representation of it, but the rest of the tournament was, pretty good for Judge. If he can take that and amplify it in the 2026 season, this is a guy that can go out there and put up another 50 home runs, right? And it's crazy to say that you're almost expecting a 50 home run campaign from a guy outside of the steroid era, but that's kind of what we've gotten to when it comes to that point with Judge, right? Now, you take that chip on his shoulder, you take the intensity that David Bednar went out there and got some very big outs for Team USA in, bring that into the season, right? You had Jazz that was, doing his thing for Great Britain, right? And obviously it wasn't, necessarily the greatest showing of all, but this is a guy now you have the opportunity to kind of put up from the big comments that he made about a 50-50 season, right? Now, to me, the other part of this is that the experience that Austin Wells got to me is going to be the biggest, positive note from the WBC. What he got to do in being on Team Dominican Republic and being around those guys who are arguably some of the best players in the game, right? Being around Juan
Hmm.
Soto, Vlad Jr., Fernando Tatis Jr., Ketel Marte, being around these guys, seeing what they're doing in the cage, seeing the work that they're putting in behind the scenes, and then being able to go out there and work with, guys like Sandy Alcantara, right? Going out there, working with the different guys from that absolutely ridiculous bullpen that they had. There's an opportunity there for him to be able to bring what he took from the WBC over to the 2026 season for the New York Yankees and have a monster year. If Austin Wells can go out there and hit you 250, 260 with 2025 bombs because of the experience that he got in the WBC and what he was able to take away from it, I think the Yankees are in a good spot.
It should be a good thing for them, and hopefully hopefully Wells amongst above all else got the most out of the WBC because he was the main catcher for the Dominican team.
Yep.
So him playing in those games, playing a lot too, catching. Um, he should be in midseason form quickly. Quickly. Um, especially calling the games too. Like
Yeah.
hopefully he kind of got an insight into to how some of these, not just how they prepare, but tendencies as well. Because I mean, he's seeing like a Vladdy up close. He sees Vladdy up close, but now he's seeing it. Now he's sitting there watching it at a different angle now, like
Yeah.
as a teammate, kind of seeing how the behind the scenes preparation he's doing. Like what is he going to do to kick in? How does he kick into high gear? How can he take that into the next level? How can he take that and pass that information to some of the other kids and some of the other guys on the team? Like, hey,
Yep.
these are things I saw. Like, maybe this will be good for someone like you to add to your repertoire or things like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like you said, Duvall. I know the Yankees have been working with Duvall all off season. Like they went down to they sent guys down to the DR with him and had him at the academy, Boca, and they were working on release points and they were working on stance and they were working on, hey, this is the video of you in 2023 when you had your breakout season. Let's get you back to here. And he was having a lot of improvements because of that. So this could be like Duvall could have a breakout season and pitching in the WBC, pitching in important games could be the catalyst to kind of set the tone for his season as well. But on the same
100%.
token, I'm hoping that um, for like a Judge, the letdown of the title game there's not a hangover for him. That's what I mean. Like there's nothing to say that there would be a hangover, but you never know. Like
Yeah.
he had you had the World Series, and then he had time to kind of react to it, and then kind of get over it and compartmentalize the whole World Series to step forward. Now it's a very short period of time of, hey, we just lost a nail biter, what became a nail biter to the Venezuelans. I didn't perform in this game, and now I've got to get back to the Yankees. I got to leave the Yankees, and oh, by the way, we got opening day in a week.
Yeah.
I gotta get my head back in. I gotta get my head back in the game for here. How can how can he get? How much is this going to affect him, or is he going to use that? Is that going to be fuel to the fire for him?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that watching the way that he's kind of reacted to different things throughout the course of time, as a Yankee, we've seen him kind of be able to react in a positive way, right? Think
Mhm.
about the one time he got ejected from a game, he went on an absolute tear after that, right? So
Right.
for me, looking at the way that Judge is and the way that he's kind of comported himself over the tenure of his Yankee career, this to me is likely going to serve as motivation, right? I think back to 2009 in the WBC when Jeter was a part of that, right? And there was a comment made about he made a comment on the broadcast about the guys that say that winning the WBC is like winning the World Series. They've never played in the World Series, right? And
Yeah.
the U.S. team with Jeter on there, with A-Rod on there, at different points in time. But in '09, they lost, right? And they lost, and I think it was the semifinals or the quarterfinals, and that was the year the Yankees won the championship, right? So being able to take that chip on your shoulder, being able to take that as motivation, and being able to put that into what you're doing for the team in 2026, to me, is just going to be a bigger avenue for Judge's success.
Well, that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping, because Judge ain't getting any younger, and these are the final years of prime Judge. Think you got this year, next, hopefully, there's going to be baseball next year. I hate talking like, oh, is there baseball? I think the owners are going to be too stupid to knock out baseball for next year. But yeah, I think you got 2, maybe 3 more years of prime Judge, especially prime outfield Judge, and then now you got to then see what happens to him after that.
Yeah, no, I think that and it's not even just Judge, right? So we always focus on Judge when it comes to the prime years, but we're losing the prime of Garrett Cole, we're losing the prime of Aaron Judge, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, like and we're running out of time, right, for this window of opportunity, right, where you're having the expectation that Judge is going to hit 50 a year, right, where you're having it's just penciled in minds of Yankee fans that Judge is going to go out and hit 50. Like, that's not an easy thing to do, right? That's why after the steroid era, you really didn't see it, right? That's why when Jose Bautista did it for the Blue Jays, so a decade ago, it was such a big deal. Like, yo, is this guy juicing because he had 54 home runs, right? So the fact that Judge has gone out in 3 of the last 4 years and hit 50 home runs and probably would have done it in 23 if he hadn't collided with the wall in Dodger Stadium. Like, he was well on his way. I mean, he still ended up with 37 that year. Like, he was well on his way to another 50 home run campaign. So you're talking, if he hadn't gotten hurt, it's reasonable to expect 4 straight years of 50 home runs. Like, that just doesn't happen. But the Yankees need to do everything in their power to capitalize on this window, because my opinion is that when we look at this team, right, especially fans of our generation growing up under the boss and under Jeter, it was World Series or bust, right? And amongst the fans, that's still the mentality. However, obviously, amongst the front office, amongst the owner and Hal Steinbrenner, that's not the same mantra. That's not the same mentality. But you're running out of time to where you can reasonably expect this team to be competitive in that nature. Yeah, the Yankees haven't had a losing season in 30 some odd years, but you're running out of time where this team is going to be amongst the top 5 in baseball, right? Amongst the top 3 in the American League. And I think that if you lose this window of Cole and Judge, amongst the other guys, now you're really going to be looking at what is this next generation going to look like, right? And we spoke about it, right? There are some positive things to look forward to with this next generation of Yankees. But is that core going to be able to be enough to surpass guys like Vladdy, like Fernando Tatis Jr., like, the Bobby Witts of the world, the Cal Raleighs of the world, the Julio Rodriguez's? Like, are they going to be able to compete with those superstars? And so that, to me, is the biggest thing. The Yankees need to put the pedal to the metal and go full bore with this team right now, and they just have not shown a willingness to do so.
No, they're very much in a, you know the Yankees under George, and especially the Yankees with Jeter, they were considered a very corporate team. Very buttoned up, very tight knit, or very wound tight. Too corporate, ties and everything like that. I think that Hal runs this too much like a corporate boardroom, as opposed to, he doesn't have enough fan in him, and that's the problem. Is that George Steinbrenner knew what he had to do a lot of times. Like, he knew he needed a strong farm system to help feed the major league team. He needed, because you couldn't just keep buying a player or trading off everybody. But George Steinbrenner was also a maniacal fan.
Yes, it was.
And the George the fan would always overrule George the businessman every step of the way. And that was the unfortunate part for George because he just couldn't get out of his own way. And then
We see it across town right now with Steve Cohen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Steve Cohen. That's going to be. I mean, he's got more money than anybody else in baseball, but I mean, he's still going to have these. Still got the. You need pitching. I mean, he's got to sign. They got to resign. They got to extend Freddie Peralta.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's going into a spot where even the general manager doesn't like giving more than 3 years, and you're going to have to give him like a 7-year deal there.
Easily, yep.
Noah McLean, he's good. He's still a rookie, but he's looks like he's the number one right-handed pitcher in baseball. But I mean, that's great. But at the same token, he got exposed by seasoned hitters. So he's got to step for him, he's got to step the game up. They got a lot of positions they got to fill out too. Like they got offense. Offensively, they need some bounce. Like Francisco Alvarez needs to have a bounce back. They need more infield depth. They need some outfielders too. Like Mets have pieces, but they need a lot more. They need a lot more starting pitching too. Like that, when their top end, they have too much top end stuff, but no middle mid-level kind of guys that are on that team. They're not too many like the workhorses that you need type of stuff. They have all-stars and they have below in soccer that back in the early 2000s there was a team, the team Real Madrid. They had a philosophy called the Galacticos, where they go out and buy like not just the most expensive player, but the best player available at the time. And the president of the club, he coined the term. What they have is a Zidane y Pavon, which is you have the best of the best, and then you kind of fill in the rest of the team with with rookies and the other guys along the way. And that's kind of like how I see like the Mets are doing. They're kind of, you got your Lindors, you got your Sotos, you got some top end guys, but then when the bottom end of it is, there's a big drop off between them, and there's the middle ground is not really there.
Yeah, as Dave said, they need to stop picking up the Yankees cast-offs. They got their ace, Clay Holmes.
That was Dave's favorite player. Dave loves Clay Holmes, man. They got Clay Holmes. They picked up Ottavino at one point. Curtis Granderson. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
It's so funny.
But I think that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Jeremy, thank you for joining us as usual.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure everybody knows all the spots to catch you at. But if you got any, please give them all the socials to check you out at.
Yeah, absolutely. Anywhere you find yourself looking at the Baseball Banner broadcast, you'll see my face on there. Make sure while you're here on the YouTube side of things that you like and subscribe. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube, we got a lot of fun stuff there. And be sure to check out baseballbannerbroadcast.com for new articles daily. So without a doubt, definitely you can catch us there as well. And, thanks for having me on, Mark. Definitely always appreciate having the opportunity to talk Yankees baseball. So
absolutely. And then on the channel also we got some other fun stuff coming around. We got a lot of baseball going on. We got some new shows that are in the works that are coming out hopefully sooner than later this season. So everyone check, like Jeremy said, like I said in the beginning, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button for not just the show for us here, but for the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Go to the website. Make sure you're keeping up to speed on all the things that we got going on, because we got lots and lots of things happening. So for Jeremy, Dave, who couldn't make it first, I'm Mark, Bronx Muchachos, signing off.